Well, Kim, thank you so much for helping my project.
Sure.
So you had some questions about this. Basically, it's a project I started in 2019 to interview a person a day to the end of 2024 to find out what people think about us returning to the moon, the future of humanity, space exploration, that type of thing.
Okay.
And um, it was largely inspired by a NASA person who was in charge of getting us to the moon, who had a lapel pin where he was counting down the days to the end of 2024, because that's when we're supposed to be landing the first, the next person on the moon. And he was highlighting a NASA person of the day. So I thought, why not everyday people?
That's awesome. Very cool.
So that's a little bit about my project. Did you have any other questions about it? I guess maybe we
No,
could.
no.
Uh,
Good. Thank you.
and would you mind saying a little bit about yourself?
Sure, sure. I'm a mom of three grown-up daughters that I'm very proud of. I'm married and I'm married. I'm in IT. I'm a huge fan of space exploration. I'm a huge fan of the study of the cosmos, astrophysics, and yeah, I have always been a space nerd and a very much a layman. I work in IT, but very much interested in all things science.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. My two things in high school that I was really interested in was space and computers. And then I
Hmm.
graduated right at that point when the internet was taking off. So I ended up going into IT as well. Um,
Very cool.
and so,
Very,
so this is my way of kind of exploring the other path.
yeah, very cool. Good for
As
you.
so, when did you find out that NASA was planning to land people on the moon in 2024?
Probably about a year and a half ago, somewhere there. And you're talking about Artemis, right?
Correct, correct.
Okay. Yeah.
And with three grown daughters, how important is it to you that the first person that steps on the moon in the 21st century is a woman?
Um, you know, it's not so much the gender of the person landing on the moon. I really feel like the first person who lands on the moon represents all mankind. Naturally, that will start a new era of exploration, and I would absolutely want women to have equal footing. But the first person, I'm not sure that I'm all that focused on gender. I just want that person to represent all of humanity.
Um, that's a tall order for one person.
It is, but um, you know, there's I don't know how the selection should be, and I don't know what the qualifications are, but I would think that NASA would select a person or a set of persons who represent not just the US, but and not just a gender and not just a race, but who has the mindset that they're there for all of us.
Yeah, I mean, I guess from a practical standpoint, um, oh, how how can one person be there for everybody? I guess um, I just trying to think through the logistics of it all. I feel like Neil Armstrong made an attempt with his small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind, and
Mhm.
we come from all the representing all the people of Earth. Um, but yet there's a large group of people that didn't really identify with Neil Armstrong or the other Apollo astronauts. Um, and I guess I'd be interested in your thoughts on how, like for example, Neil, whenever he landed on the moon, how he could be more representative of all of us. Like, is
Well,
this?
just the fact that well, first of all, I don't believe that there's any one individual who is perfect, and there's no individual who can believe in everything in every human, or believe the same things that every human on earth believes, right? So naturally that person has to accept that there are people on earth that have different beliefs, different belief systems, and they're okay with knowing that they're imperfect. They are okay knowing that they may not represent every belief, but at the end of the day, we're all made of DNA. We're all inhabiting the same planet. So you have to rise up above personal beliefs and personal things and preferences and ideology, and really look at us as humankind. And I think there are individuals who are able to think at that level and advance humanity in that way. One of my biggest fans is Elon Musk, right? He probably is an atheist, and I'm a Christian. But I think in his heart of hearts, he believes that he is furthering humanity by doing the things at the scale that he's doing. I'm pretty sure his belief systems don't all align with mine, but because he's endeavoring to do it for all of mankind, regardless of people's beliefs, I think he has the right approach.
Yeah, no, that's a very good example. And I mean, and also he kind of is a multi national guy, having grown up
Mhm.
in South Africa, worked in
Right.
Canada, and has been in the US for the past, I guess, 25, 30 years or so.
Yeah.
Um, are there some other examples of people that really stick out in your mind as kind of being epitomizing that ability to kind of rise above?
Yeah. I mean, you think about, I mean, all of the very, the icons throughout the ages, right? And when you think about the Dalai Lama, right? Or, you know, uh, Mr. King, right? They come from very, very different um, times, different areas, different countries, but when you listen to them talk, you don't hear my people or my beliefs. They talk in very at a very high level on behalf of people, right? He didn't, their ideas are very universal. It's not about a race. It's not about anything other than it's universal, that we all should be offered the same opportunities. We all should respect each other. We all should embrace love and kindness. When you think about those iconic people, they think in much, much higher terms.
Yeah, I definitely, not their small group, not this moment in time, but kind of like broader and the arc of civilization type of thinking.
Right, right.
And I was interviewing a 17-year-old yesterday, and she was talking about how she felt like her peers were very focused on themselves, that they weren't focused on society at large and doing things as a group, and or their contribution to society, which I think goes to what you're talking about now. Do you feel like people are more contributing and more thinking about what we could do together, or do you think it's really we have become a lot more self-centered and a lot less thinking about these big things?
I was just having a conversation with my daughter the other day, um, and this very topic came up in terms of, there's a lot more depression, there's a lot more stress and anxiety, especially in, um, you know, the millennials, and even in my generation. And one thing that I have observed, and again, I'm going to be totally transparent, I'm a Christian. and I was raised a Christian. But I was observing that, you know, our society, at least here in the US, I think Europe is the same, but at least in the Western culture, we are marching more towards, you know, a um, agnostic view of just existence, existential thoughts, and it's very agnostic. And so, you know, I generally feel like, and I don't have any empirical data to really, you know, back this up, but I generally feel like we, as we march away from religion, which in and of itself caused us to think about things greater than ourselves, right? And when you think about religion, and I'm not talking about just Christianity, and I don't think that only Christians will go to heaven. But when you think about Christianity or, you know, Islam or um, uh, Hinduism and Taoism and all of the different Buddhism, they all have the same types of values that they teach, right? Love your fellow man, be kind, be empathetic, and treat everyone with love, and those types of things. When you have religion in your life, you begin to think, you do think larger than yourself, and in the absence of that, then you have to figure out how to think larger than yourself. And so you look at the universe, and you look at, you know, society and how we treat each other. It's harder to do that in the absence of religion because it's not ingrained, you know, in your childhood, and it's not, you don't go to church every Sunday, and so you have to actually find those yourselves. And I wonder if there have been studies that, you know, for parents who are agnostics or atheists, how do they instill those human-centric values into their children? Do they instill those, and how do they instill those things? So I really think somebody should take a really good look at that.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a very good point. I mean, just having a forum every week where you're sort of looking at morality and sort
Hmm.
of tradition, you know, offers at least kind of like a framework to
Hmm.
kind of teach and grow
Right.
in. And without that, you're just drifting from one YouTube video to the next, and you know, one activity to the next activity.
Unless you are very self-motivated, where you are seeking yourself, right? But as humans, we tend to act as a group. We tend to influence each other as a group. And watching YouTube videos, unless you have this internal need to continuously seek moral judgment, seek values, seek those things, you tend to you know, focus more on the individual rather than those sort of I can't think of the word, but you know, more nebulous context of how do I fit in to the big picture, and how do I advance humanity, how do I advance a society that cares for each other, right?
Absolutely. And I want to get this quote right, but this morning I was watching one of the astronauts, Jasmine Magabelli. She was asked advice for like kids, you know, what would you offer? And she says, surround yourself with people that have the characteristics that you want to grow into. And I
Yeah.
think that that goes into your whole idea of, you know, we do things as a group. I mean, you can make water run uphill, but it takes a lot of energy, and you're going to get tired. And at some point, it's going to run straight down the
Yeah.
hill. And
Yeah.
and so as a culture, you know, it's kind of like we shape the individual, and then the individual shapes the culture, and it kind of
Yeah.
progresses like that.
Yeah.
Um, I know Elon Musk has a special school he set up for his children, and I don't know that much about it, but I heard that one of the things that they do is kind of look at moral questions in the you know, context of like case studies. You know,
Hmm.
building a factory that emits pollution next to a village. and like kind of walking through the issues around things like that.
Yeah, I haven't heard of his school, but that's pretty intriguing, right? It's one thing to teach children to memorize things. It's another thing to bring them use cases and scenarios where they have to think through the impact of actions and what the what the outcomes are, rather either negative or positive, right? If they're able to think through that, then they can become future problem solvers.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the bad problems in society is just because people are not aware of the impact.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, just looking at waste, for example. I mean, today's trash day here, and I took the container to the end of the curb, and in my mind that problem's taken care of. But in reality, it's just got on a truck and it's accumulating someplace.
Sure, sure, absolutely. And it's a simple thing as having a recycling receptacle in your house, right? And just being aware that you don't put plastic in the trash, the trash can. Um, I go to my friend's household and I immediately ask, do you have, not immediately, but when I have to throw something away, do you have a recycling bin? And some of them are like, why? Well, let me tell you why. So I think it starts with, again, that's that's an example of thinking bigger than you are, right? Something bigger, that having a recycling bin in your house is in fact participating in, taking care of the planet and taking care of humanity. And, just something as simple as that. In our house, in the little bitty town that I live in the hill country in Texas, there's recycling, but you have to actually take your recycling to a recycling center. They don't pick it up at your house. But believing in it enough to actually get in the truck and take your bags of recycling is taking part in taking care of humanity.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, there's like so much that needs to be taken care of. I think it's kind of a little overwhelming. But kind of coming back to the moon, real quick, what do you think about us actually sending people back to the moon?
Um, I tend to have a long view of things. I always look at the future. In a lot of my friends and family think I'm a little bit crazy, but I have an extremely long view. And in about 4 to 5 billion years, our sun is going to is likely going to envelop our planet. We won't be able to live here. I think of the moon and establishing a presence on the moon is a learning step, right? I worry about the commercialization of the natural resources on the moon. I think there's a lot of interest in mining things on the moon, but for me, my hope is the first step to the next step to the next step, and eventually, we figure out how to be an interplanetary uh, species, right? Because we can't live forever here.
That's true. And I feel like, once you've established that first little Toho someplace,
Hmm.
like, a city of a few thousand people on Mars, and you have a reason to send things back and forth, and everything
Hmm.
else just follows out of that.
Yeah, I've told I lead a number of teams at work, and I've told my leaders a number of times, everything is a learning opportunity. Everything is a learning journey. And the more you learn, the rate of which you learn is exponential. And you establish a skill, and then you no longer have to think about that skill, and you can keep on learning something else. And I think, you know, colonizing the moon is the first step. We will learn, we will scrape our knees and we'll figure out, some people will die, just the trip here to to North America, for many from Europe and other areas, there people died along the way, and they died when they got here in the first winter. But when you take the long view, um, if you believe, you will figure out how to overcome the challenges to get to, interplanetary habitats.
Absolutely. I mean, you fail not whenever you have a failure, but whenever you stop trying.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much.
I, I mean, the classic Edison and the light bulb
Mhm.
situation. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
um, so, there's a lot of people that don't take that long view. They're like, we have immediate problems here on Earth, global climate change, social justice, poverty, um, lots and lots of issues. And for them, they see the expenditures spent to send humanity to the moon as complete waste, or as something that's completely out of line with what they think should be taken care of. And I was kind of wondering how you approach that conversation.
Well, I have been accused of being a Pollyanna multiple times, in my family and at work. And I don't deny these problems, and we do have them, and they are, grave problems, right? And we can't outrun ourselves by going to another planet. So we have to solve social justice. We have to solve global warming. We can't innovate fast enough to outrun global warming. So we have to solve those things. I think that if we as a species put humanity, um, as a priority, we would find a way. We would put aside the resources. We would find a way to solve the problems here while preparing for the long view. I think it's possible. And it's a matter of us as a human. I can't say human race because there's no such thing as a human race, but you know, us as a species to say these are problems that we've got to solve, and we've got to stop bickering over ideology, and we've got to stop bickering over, we have to, rise above regional or ethnic or socioeconomic tribalism to solve those big problems. We have immediate problems, which is the things that you just described, right? Climate change, um, you know, genocide and human trafficking and all of those things that is the darker side of humans. We do have to solve those immediate problems because we won't we won't be able to leave them here on Earth. Those tribalism problems, the things that we have to rewire the way we think about ourselves to be able to get off this planet and go, build ourselves, a home on another planet. We won't leave these things behind. We'll take them with us if we don't know how to solve them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we have what, 6, 7, 8 billion people on Earth.
Mhm.
Lots of people. I feel like a lot of people's energy is spent kind of fighting other people's energy, or trying
Mhm.
to direct other people to do certain things. I feel like that if something's important to you or to anyone, that they should go out and do something about it, not simply try to convince other people that something should be done about it.
Right, right.
So if it was safe and affordable, would you go to space?
I would,
How far would you go? Like to orbit, to the moon, immigrate to Mars?
as far as I can afford it. If it was safe and affordable, as far as I could.
Now, a lot of people I've talked to who've answered that question in negative say that their main reason they wouldn't want to go is claustrophobia, which on one hand seems kind of uh, oxymoronic in the sense that you're in this huge open thing, but on the other hand, you're in like this really small contained spot. What do you think it would be like to actually go someplace?
I think claustrophobia is a real thing. I have an ounce of it myself. Um, I think that if everybody was able to go to space and look down on Earth, right? I think our views would change to whatever degree that each person is able to change, right? But to some level, each of us would change when we look at, Earth as a planet, and every single one of us, other than those who have been on the moon and those on the, International Space Station, when you look back, that's every single person on Earth lives there, right? Um, I can go on and on, and I've thought very deeply about existential things, but I'm a big believer in the grand design. You cannot convince me that there is no grand design in the universe. There's just too many patterns, too many things that happen. And again, that may be religion speaking, but I think when you go out into space and you look at the vastness of it and you begin to understand, how huge and how vast and how small Earth is and how small we are, right? That it may cause us to take a very, very long view of humanity.
Yeah, definitely. And several things I thought I'd run by you. The UN right now is in New York, and people fly there from all over the world to kind of talk about policy here on Earth. But they're able to kind of experience the world as they've always experienced, with borders and checkpoints, and kind of their own particular view of the way things are. Oh, what do you think once Elon actually is launching the Starship multiple times per day? Uh, at some point you could have the UN in orbit around the Earth, and all the delegates are kind of looking at it like it is now, without borders and more holistically. I just wonder what kind of effect that might have.
I would have to think a little bit deeply about that, but my initial reaction is hell yeah. Let's let's put them in orbit, and let's transcend borders, and let's look at how frail the ocean is, and let's look at just how frail, how thin, how incredibly thin our atmosphere is, the thing that keeps us alive, right? And I think if you sent our world leaders into orbit, I think they will have a different outlook of how they want to work with each other, with leaders all over the world.
It definitely give them a shared experience, for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
Well, Kim, I really appreciate your time. I know we're right at the top of the hour. Is there anything you wanted to add before we go?
No, I would ask a favor that when at the end of your experiment that you share. I think it's a wonderful thing you're doing, and as a participant, I hope I earned, the you sharing with me once you're done. I would love to see other views and hear what other people have to say.
That's awesome. Yeah, all the interviews I've done are on countdowntothemoon.org, but it's a lot of stuff to go through. So at some point you want the final readout. I'll try to
Yeah,
provide
yeah,
that.
yeah, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kim. You have a good rest of your day.
Thanks.